All right, welcome to Servant Leadership Library. We're the only podcast where leadership isn't about corner offices or big egos. It's about rolling up our sleeves, showing up for your team, and maybe even brewing the coffee yourself. So I'm your host, Nicholas Paluco, CEO of One-to-One, your friendly neighborhood IT and security firm. Because let's be honest, even servant leaders need someone to reset their password. So today's guest is kind of a leader who could write the book on people leadership and probably should. So Jack Nehlig spent 23 years at the helm of Phoenix Contact USA and just hung up his executive boots this January. But don't let the word retire fool you. Jack's passion for positive people-centric leadership still packs a punch. Before Phoenix Contact, he spent 19 years at Honeywell, climbing the ranks from sales to vice president and general manager of their sensing and control business. Basically, if leadership were an Olympic sport, Jack would have at least 3 medals and a Wheaties box. So grab your favorite drink, coffee, tea, or something stronger. Settle in. This is going to be a master class in humble, human-first leadership and just right amount of cheek. So, welcome, Jack.
Thank you, Nick.
We appreciate you being here.
That's wonderful. Great job on the name. You got it.
Yeah, man, guys, I was stressing out, so we'll work towards a better result there next time.
Whenever I get introduced to somebody and they ask about the name, I say it's Nehlig, and you'll never meet another one. There's not too many in the U.S.
Oh, well, I love. So, where is your family originally from?
So that's my father's side, of course, the way the naming would happen, and that's a German name.
Okay.
But it's the border between Germany and France.
Really?
It's
Okay.
known as the Alsace region.
Okay.
LAC. And over the years it was French and then German, all the wars back a long time ago.
Okay.
And so we have a family tree that my mother made, and you see Jean-Philippe Nehlig.
Nehlig. My father was born in Dingelfink, Germany. And if you look it on a map, I don't even think the dot even fits there, right? Well, thank you for coming today. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, sure. Well, first, I guess I should point out I'm a born and raised Pennsylvanian.
Okay.
Over near Philadelphia, the northern suburbs. Was born in a town called Abington. Willow Grove was where I grew up, and then I graduated from Plymouth White Marsh High School, which is kind of near the Valley Forge area.
Yes. Okay.
There's a Plymouth Meeting exit, I think, on the turnpike.
Yes.
It's right out there.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up. One of 3 boys. My mom was a teacher. Dad was a small business owner. He had a printing shop. He silk screen printed things back in the day. And then I went to college. I didn't go to college in Pennsylvania because the 2 I applied for that I wanted to go to didn't accept me.
Oh, no.
So I had to go to my safety school. And that was a college by the name of Clarkson University. It was Clarkson College when I was there, and it's Clarkson University.
Now, okay.
And it's about 30 miles from Canada, straight up in New York. So you're way, way up in New York State, in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
The frozen tundra. And I went and started in engineering and figured out that didn't work. Okay. And then I ended up in a degree that was 50% engineering, 50% management. Kind of a blend.
Okay.
It was really a great invention, and it was a little before its time. It was known as industrial distribution. Today, they call it interdisciplinary engineering and management.
Wow.
IEM. So the mix of the engineering management is the idea. The whole idea with the degree is so that you can be in marketing or management in a technology firm. Okay. Right? You got to understand the concepts, be able to talk to the engineers. Right. But then still pursue a business side of the business. Okay. So that was my college life, and graduated and started with Honeywell, as you pointed out. And I was in sales for 6 years, 3 in New Jersey, 3 down in Phoenix, Arizona. And then I started getting invited into management. And it was just sort of, they asked me one day whether I wanted to take this job. And I said, yes. I didn't think no was the right answer. And that's what kept happening. Like I'd work at a management job for a year or 2, and they'd say, someone would come along, one of my leaders above me, and say, hey, Jack, we have this job we want you to think about. And I'd say, okay. And so I kind of wiggled my way up, not like I was trying to do it. I really wasn't, but I kept getting different experiences, and I guess they were believing in my leadership foundation that was being invented. And so I like to say I accidentally, became a general manager, if you will.
Wow.
By just saying yes all the time to the leadership challenges.
Taking on a new challenge. Yeah.
And then that was about the first 20 years of my career, 19 years. And then Honeywell was having its problems and being pursued by General Electric to be acquired. And then it fell through. And Honeywell's a great company and still is today. But they were having this little identity crisis at the time. And I was invited to do another bigger job. And they wanted me to consider being part of taking my unit that I was running and another unit, smushing them together and laying off 1,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And it was a big job, and it was a big global job. But it was that point in my life when I had my 3 boys going into prime time, from about 6 to 12 years old.
Right.
And I didn't want to spend my life on an airplane not being part of my family. So I started looking a little bit and very quickly came up on this opportunity to join Phoenix Contact. And A, it was in Pennsylvania, so we could get back to family. B, they only wanted someone that run the U.S. They didn't want anybody to go any higher.
Really?
They just wanted somebody to go there, run the U.S., and do it for 20 years.
Wow.
And I thought about it, and I said, this going up was fun, but I didn't really need to go any higher, and that wasn't the point. And I ended up running a much smaller business than I was running at Honeywell.
Okay.
It was only about 80 million sales with about 200 employees when I joined it. And I really loved it. It felt hands-on again. I got to be back in the details and really knowing everybody in the company.
Oh, that's great.
And it was just a real fun change for us. So I joined it, and it also went from being part of a publicly traded multinational company to a privately held, family-owned company, a German company. And we went from the infamous knowing quarterly profits and things to you would meet the owners and they'd say, "How are we doing, Jack?" And I'd say, "We're doing good." And they'd say, "Keep growing." And that was like the big conversation.
That was the vision.
Yeah. And as long as you properly managed the business and made some profits, and yes, you had budgets and plans you submitted each year, but the pressures were not around
shareholder
profits.
meetings and all that.
Yeah, the shareholder equity story was not the story. So we had a great time growing the business. When I left it, we had more than 1,000 employees. I think 1,100, 1,200 employees.
Wow.
And did over $500 million in sales. So
unbelievable.
We did good.
Yeah, you brought the sales and the business and the engineering all together there.
Yeah. And halfway in that journey at Phoenix Contact, the owners, actually in the first 4 or 5 years when I got there, they came to me and said, "Hey, we want to start a manufacturing part of the business," because mostly what we did was buy the products in from Germany and resell them to U.S. customers.
Oh, I see. Okay.
We're like a Mercedes dealership.
Yeah.
We'd bring in the product, put it in the warehouse, find the customer, sell it to them. But the owners finally realized that they needed to expand their design efforts and manufacturing efforts. And so they asked us to start a design and manufacturing company. And in 2005, we started that. And as part of the growth and part of the sales, we ended up growing a business there. You don't see it. It's not separated. It looks like all one. But there's a separate legal business entity there called Phoenix Contact Development and Manufacturing.
Okay.
And that company has 350 employees today and does over $100 million in sales.
That is
of
unbelievable.
U.S.-made stuff.
Wow. That is amazing.
So yeah, that was a fun story.
And what can you tell the audience a little bit about what Phoenix Contact makes and develops?
So here's the best way to think about what Phoenix Contact makes. It's one of these unknown companies. So the way it works is I always tell somebody, imagine a factory anywhere. It doesn't matter what that factory makes. But if you start off and think of a factory, let's say it's cars. What's your image of that? There's these machines in the factory that are making the cars with people, but are all these machines inside of a factory that are making the stuff. So then you got to think about inside the machines, there's electrical products that make the machines go. And they're very specific and unique electrical products that make the machines do their thing.
Okay.
That's what we make. We make the products that make the machines go. So we sell to, and I keep saying I'm retired now, but we, when I was there, sell to basically machine builders.
Okay.
And if you go around this country, there's thousands and thousands of machine builders that make all the specific unique machines that manufacturers need to make their stuff.
Okay. So that make the lines or design the lines, or like how cars are made and automated today, what Elon is talking about with his robots and automation.
Yep. And so the name of our industry, you just hit it. Then there's a name of the industry that we are part of, and that's called automation and control.
That's where the Honeywell aspect came in to be handy.
And they were an automation control company too, and that's where I learned my art, if you will.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's a real fun job. Now, I mean, as I said, any manufacturing, go to Utz potato chips.
Yeah.
They got machines in there making the potato chips. Inside the machines. It goes on and on. And it also goes to the infrastructure we all live in.
Right.
If you look at a cell tower, at the bottom of the cell tower are these big gray metal boxes. Inside those boxes are things that are taking those signals, processing them, and shooting them somewhere. Well, we make stuff that goes in the cell towers. So we make industrial electronic equipment that is specifically used to make things or run our infrastructure in the world.
That's unbelievable. So your product is in so many things that we probably eat and wear or today. That's pretty cool.
Everywhere.
That's got to make you feel good.
Yeah. The jet bridge, the jet bridge in the airport that's feeling its way out. There's stuff making all that happen.
That is unbelievable.
So, it's in many, many walks of our life.
You remind me of one of my associates. His family created the only rare earth metal and magnet company in the U.S.
Yeah.
And all their magnets are in things such as satellites and military weapons, and so it's kind of neat. They're like, well, we're just a little component inside of a bigger goal or.
And if you go inside of their factory, there'll be some machines, and if you open up the boxes in the machines, and you'll see all
that's crazy.
Typically,
unbelievable.
Now, we have competitors too, so there's lots of companies that do what our company does, but yeah, it's just hidden.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Hidden science, hidden technology.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, with your leadership over the last many years, like, what was your leadership philosophy? It sounds like many of your managers and other leaders saw such great things in you from a leadership standpoint. What do you feel that is? What was your driving force as a leader?
Well, as you know, by reading some of my bio, my big thing is people-centric, being people-centric, as opposed to thinking of employees as numbers. And developing a workforce culture where people can thrive. So if you had to pick an angle, that's my angle, is really being focused on the people. And then I do believe in just the strategic and visionary side of the business, where you need to guide your business. And that's always been a hobby of mine, if you will. So if you add those two together, I'd say that's kind of how I roll as a leader.
And from like the culture aspect, like, what is an example of something that might be someone that's trying to learn this for themselves? Yeah.
So if I go to one small example, in our mission vision statements, and the company in Germany also embraces all this and gave us some of this, but it's exactly the way I would lead anyway. We have a sentence in there that talked about a friendly work environment. And I used to talk to training classes or visitors and say, look, if you can ever find another industrial B2B company, so not B2C, B2B company, that has the word friendly in their mission vision statements, let me know and I'll go buy you a dinner. And in 20 years there, I never had to buy a dinner.
Really?
Except for one of my salespeople one time spent a whole weekend Googling and found
they were hungry.
Yeah. So what we say then when I used to address new employees, I'd say, look, here's the rule of thumb. Anybody can have a bad day every now and then, but you can't have a bad day every day at Fides Content. And I'd say, look, if you're really a grumpy person, keep your resume handy, because you're not going to feel comfortable here. And then that translates into just the simple leadership behaviors. Leaders need to smile and say good morning to people, be nice to them, and very positive to create a good work environment. And it's that kind of feeling that we spent a lot of time on.
And it sounds like it works because you've been able to grow that staff quite exponentially.
Yeah, the growth of the business, that's for sure. Some of the things we're probably most proud of is, we've always scored pretty highly in the Great Place to Work surveys.
Okay.
And whenever we work with our team, they just love the company and love working there. So
that's a testament to, we always talk about core values, right? Mm-hmm. And to know it seems as if you're expressing your core values, right? And you're living them, right? Somebody say that we have core values, but they're somewhere. Yeah. Right. And those that live and kind of say hire, fire, train, and reward on the core values, right, seem to really create a culture of togetherness, right? Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing.
So it's friendliness. And then I guess the other word I'd throw out that we have trained a lot on is the simple word respect. Mm. And the way I used to summarize this for people is that each one of us, of course, is a bundle. I used to say a bundle of uniquenesses, a whole bunch of little things about you. You wrap them up and it's your bundle of uniquenesses. And everybody's different. Mm-hmm. Even if you think you're the same, you're not, mm-hmm. right? Everybody's different. And I always used to say the goal in our work environment is that nobody should feel uncomfortable with their uniquenesses, mm-hmm. about their uniquenesses. Mm-hmm. And it's the simple word respect. We all need to respect each other for all of those uniquenesses that we bring to the work environment.
I like that, right? Because somebody's interpretation of respect could be different. Now you define that, and it really allows others to be able to apply that. That's great. Yep. You talk about coming into the business as when it was about $80 million, I think you said, mm-hmm. and leading at that level to where you exited. What were some of the challenges as a leader yourself, kind of growing at such a pace?
Yeah, so it's going to sound funny, but the challenges were very few. And there was a couple reasons why. One, a lot of people talk about the difficulty getting a workforce. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in factories and warehouses, it's difficult to get.
We hear that a lot.
Yeah, it's difficult to get people.
Yeah.
We never found that. And the reason was we dug into it. We always were confused why we didn't have any trouble getting people. Well, it was just about what we just talked about. The word on the street in that Harrisburg area was we were a great place to work. So when we would post, we need 10 warehouse workers, they'd have come running. And it was a simple game. So we never really struggled with getting people, which you usually struggle with when you're trying to grow a business, quote, that fast, right? And then investment is another question, whether your company, your corporate culture is going to give you the money you need. Well, my family-owned leadership and ownership, they just loved growth. And we actually have a very small market share, relatively speaking, in the United States. So they always viewed us as a growth market. So as long as we brought good plans and ideas, they always seemed to be funded. So I didn't have a problem with money, getting it from our owners, and I didn't have a problem getting people. So
that's unheard of today.
So this is going to sound weird. It was easy to do the business. Really, it was just keep building a good culture, hiring the right people, and then building plans each year and strategies for the future. And just doing the job of running the business, all of us with staff and the whole management team. And it just kept clicking. Everything seemed really good.
There's a lot of small businesses, especially in Lancaster County, right? And did you find any major differences between your family-owned business and how it operated more at a different enterprise level when you're at Honeywell?
Yeah. So, there's stark differences between corporate America and privately held German businesses. Now, you could say French business, Italian business. In Germany, they have a name for this. It's called Mittelstand, which means medium-sized company. And they mean family-owned medium-sized company. And those companies, and there's many, many, many of them, are just so focused on the future and investment. And they really take profit as a secondary conversation. They want to make enough money, and they always want to have money in the bank. Make sure you don't have to take bank loans. So manage your cash really well. But the profit, they don't want to maximize the profit because they feel like it will slow down the growth of the business. That's the attitude. And that's the difference I saw immediately.
Wow.
From coming from corporate America. And my favorite story to illuminate that point is a sales story. So when I joined the company, I talked to the gentleman many times that I was replacing. And we were having this one conversation about sales effectiveness and how you do your sales and all this stuff. And I told him, and I showed him some data. I said, well, look, when I was at Honeywell and we ran that business, here's a 10-year chart of how much sales per sales employee we were getting. So we were getting $2 million of sales per sales employee. And 10 years later, it was $4 million. So I said, look how efficient we are. And he looked at me and he kept thinking, and he said, well, Mr. Nehlig, we think about it a little differently here at Phoenix Contact. I said, what? He says, when we get to $2 million of sales per sales employee, we add more sales employees. And their idea was never to get it to $4 million per sales employee. That gives you better profits. But when you get to 2 million, add another salesperson and go back to 1.8 million, and then they grow back up, you'll find that your growth rate of this business is much better than your growth rate of this business.
Right.
And that was the magic.
Yeah.
So
slow and steady.
Yeah. So that was the real difference, the simple difference between corporate America and these Mittelstand companies in Germany was the focus on growth versus the focus on maximizing your profits. Now, if you do show me, and many people can probably check us and debate us and put comments to say, well, that's not right. You can still grow, have high profits and growth. That's true. But many of these corporate America companies that focus on the high profits, they then go acquire another company. They take their profits, acquire a company, and then acquire another, and then they shrink their workforce and increase their profits, and then acquire another company. Well, that's exactly how they grow. And it is a viable financial way to grow. If you want to take your money and buy companies, that's fine.
Right.
The owners that I worked for in my second part of my career took their money and invested in the business. And I used to say, like the old-fashioned way, we rolled up our sleeves, we designed a new product, we put it in a factory, we found a customer, we sold it. And that's the way we grow.
Yes. It seems as if that probably supported the culture quite well too.
Yeah.
So that the team didn't feel necessarily the same. They saw the growth and they saw the win, but they didn't seem all the pressure that possibly came from that in the same way.
They only felt the pressure to grow, and there was the pressure they liked.
Right.
Right. And you're right. Because they saw the investment, it's a sign of confidence in you from your owners. Right. So their pride raised, went up, and that just snowballed. And they just kept feeling proud of what they were doing and working harder and proud of what they're doing and working harder. And it just seemed to work out really well.
And it just kept going and going.
Going and going.
Yeah. So as you transitioned and retired, what did you give the same? Did your predecessor ask the same question about sales?
No. So when I left, we handed it over to some internal leaders that were in the business, that had been in the business 25 to 30 years.
Okay.
So they knew the formula. And I like to joke that they didn't replace me. They just let people take over. And it's true. It's really what happened. We didn't go to the outside. No single person at first was named CEO. It was just a sort of a group leadership. And they're doing very well. And they're going to continue to do very well because the mother company is a great company, and the team in the U.S. is a great team, and the leaders have all embraced the great philosophy of making sure the workforce culture is great and investment in the business, and they'll do a fantastic job.
A little testament to you though, because there's a difference between creating, a manager, training a manager, but then creating another leader, which it seems like you did, right? Like you developed other leaders, which is a very difficult thing to do. Yeah. If somebody's developing a team, that's one thing, but it sounds like you built another set of leaders, which is not a easy task to do. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So yes, I believe in leadership development, but I don't believe I built and grew those leaders. There's a famous quote by Maxwell, who's a great leadership guru, and he says he's not sure if leadership can be learned. No, he's not sure if leadership can be taught, but it can be learned. And so it's their commitment to learn it It's not that I developed them as leaders. They developed themselves as leaders, and they did it. And that's the culture there was, of course, about leadership development too. And I did, back to your point, I did bring an attitude, I guess you would say, of strengthening leadership development when I was there. And we built leadership principles, and we made sure leaders were getting the training they needed. And we had monthly leadership meetings, and we developed a good leadership culture. And that fed the development of the leaders, right?
And the tenure. I think you said 20 years, right? The person was there 20 years?
Yeah, a lot of the three leaders that I left when I left there that basically took over, one had 30 years, the other one 28, and the other one, 19, I think.
Wow. So, unbelievable.
Yeah, with a lot of great tenure. Well, of course, when you go from 200 to 1,000 employees,
right,
you're down to a few that could get to 30.
That's right. Right. They each level, so they can level up or they can't.
There's a great guy in the factory by the name of Mike Nichols, and he was about the 8th employee.
Wow.
And today he has 43 years with the company.
Wow.
And he's a great guy.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see that. You don't hear that much about that and the tenure. So that's unbelievable. Yeah, good testament to the work that you guys have done.
Yep.
We talk about like when things are going great, I'm sure nothing's ever gone sideways, right? But when things go sideways, how have you kept yourself grounded as a leader, right? Yeah. Like it's a lot of pressure or whatnot. Could you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So if you think back in the last 25 years, there were two big moments where things went sideways, right? The first one was the 08-09 crash. I don't know if you felt that in your business, but a lot of us felt that in ours. My Phoenix Contact USA business dropped 20% in a single year. So we all went through that, right? The financial crisis, right? And then the second one was the pandemic, right? That was a pretty big crisis for all of us. So if I think of those two instances, the best way to get yourself through it, of course, is, as you said in your opening, roll up your sleeves as a leader and be part of the solution, and really, really open up and drive creativity to get things to happen right. And it's an all for one and one for all moment, and titles go away at that point, and you've got to really just get together as a team and tackle the problem. And on the first one, and I'll never forget the day, it was about mid-February in 2009 when things were going bad all around the world and all the news was bad. And my boss in Germany called me and he said, "Jack, it's pretty bad over there too, right?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. It's really bad." And he said, "You think there's any way you can get us through this without a layoff?" I said, "If you back me, if you let me do what I need to do, we'll do it." And he said, "Yeah, of course we'll." And so we all took a 5% pay cut. We put a hiring freeze on. We took the 401k away for a year. We did many cost savings ideas, programs, to cut costs in the business. And by the end of the year, we had actually generated cash.
Wow.
In our checkbook instead of shrinking cash. At a time when our business was down 20%.
Wow.
So, and that wasn't me. That was all of us together. And I'll never forget, though, the big leadership moment when at that time, I only had maybe 350 employees. So I held quarterly all-employee meetings.
Okay.
And there were about 4 of them a day, and 150 people in front of me. I don't know what the right number was. But this one gentleman came after I announced the 5% pay cut. The one gentleman walked up to me right after. He was a factory worker. He's a great guy. And he got right in my face and he said, "You're getting a pay cut too?" And I said, "Yes, sir, Michael." He said, "Okay, I'm with you." And he walked away. So I don't know. Just rolling up your sleeves, doing the right thing, delivering the bad news right to them, telling them why.
How do you message that to each type of strata of a thinker of every level, right? That's probably pretty difficult, but it was pretty simple, right? Like I remember when he said, "Are you taking a pay cut as well?" Right?
Yeah. Huh. You got to treat them all the same. In those tough times, everybody's in the boat together.
Wow.
And then during the pandemic, it was the same challenge we all faced, right? So we sent, on that March in 2020, I think we sent 475 people home in a week. And your profession, my team, internal team, my IT team, they had a big job to do because they had to wire all those people up in their homes.
That's right.
With hardware and software, and they did an amazing job. And overnight, we all had to learn this thing called Teams and Zoom.
Aren't we all tired of Teams and Zoom yet?
Yeah. But what a miracle that was.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having to go through a pandemic without that?
That's right.
What if we didn't have that technology today? And I'll never forget, I had gone into the factory in March on a Saturday to help the factory. And matter of fact, nobody was there that day. And I went in and I was building what's called rail assemblies. Sometimes the customer would order the products mounted on a rail, and then they stick it in the machine.
Okay.
So I knew they were swamped, and I just asked one of the supervisors to set me up a job or two, and they taught me on Friday afternoon for about a half an hour. And I said, I'm going to come in and work 4 or 5 hours by myself and try to help out. So I did, all by myself, building products. And I was listening to a podcast, and it was a podcast with Bill Gates. And in that podcast in March of 2020, the guy brought up remote technologies.
Yes.
And he said, yeah, my team is giving me this thing, Teams, and I don't know how to use it yet. So only 5 years ago, even Bill Gates didn't know what Teams was.
Right.
And think about what we all do with that thing.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's incredible.
It's amazing to see how we transformed how business is done.
Yeah.
In such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we had to get through that bad time too, just like everybody. I mean, we were lucky to be a critical business or whatever you had called it running. And we kept rolling pretty good. Sent everybody home, but the factory and warehouse workers, the hero workers, had to come to work and do their job. And they fought through all the masks and the distancing and all that work, and somebody getting sick the next day, and the paranoia you had because you stood next to them. And the team did an amazing job. They just did an amazing job. But we had to be on the floor and talk to them 2 or 3 times a week and say, here's what's going on, and here's what we're hearing from the medical industry, and here's what the government's saying.
Comes back to that communication.
Yeah, we just pounded communication the best we could.
That's unbelievable.
But we did a great job getting through it.
Yeah. And we somewhat feel like that was far away from a time, but it surely wasn't, but it sure feels like
just 5 years ago.
Right? Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I guess the adversity, I mean, that creates a lot of adversity for the people and who you lead, but it sounds like that culture kind of drives a lot of that I want to say forgiveness, but like when there's ups and downs, there's an understanding base of people that believe the same thing, makes it a little easier to lead through.
Yeah. You just got to believe that the adversity is going to bring out the best of your team. And it does. Yeah. I mean, it really does.
It's unbelievable.
And they shine through the process every time. And so those were the 2 baddies. And so my feeling when you have bad situations is just stay highly transparent, work extra hard, and be right up front with the people and face them and tell them what's going on.
I love it. And from like serving, that's a lot of servant leadership, right? How did you instill like that mentality that you had with your other leaders?
Yeah. So I never used the term servant leadership, but I understood servant leadership. I always just called it people-centric kind of leadership. And we developed training classes with HR to train the way we wanted to lead and really pushed leaders, to develop themselves. First of all, they all had to develop themselves. But if we had some leaders that weren't doing the right thing, we privately and quietly got in their face to explain that they really had to step it up. And I would say, Nick, half of them did.
Right.
And just were testing you to see if you really meant it.
Right. Is this going to stick around?
But in the end, a good number of leaders left. Yeah. Because they didn't want to be part of that culture. They wanted to be more part of an apathetic leadership culture where all they cared is you did your job. and they didn't really care that you're part of a positive, uplifting leadership team. And those companies are out there.
Right.
So they moved on to a happy spot, which was happy for me. And then as those leaders would leave, the rest of the leaders were like, this is good, because they didn't like the fact that that leader wasn't embracing the new world the way the other leaders were. So it was sort of a self-cleansing story, the way it worked.
They kind of coached up or coached out themselves.
But I'm a big fan of leadership development, and you hold leadership offsites, and you do things to build that leadership team. The more you do it, the better off it gets.
That's amazing. Did the culture that you created here in the U.S. mimic anything in Germany, or was the culture quite different?
So on culture, I'll give you my favorite story. First of all, the German culture, the German people are wonderful people. I really enjoyed my 23 years with them, and have great friends from those years. And the owners were wonderful people. So nothing I'm about to say is negative. But what I learned about the German culture, I guess maybe just in manufacturing, I don't know, maybe just in leadership, I don't know. But I said this to one of my bosses one time. I said, I finally figured out the German culture. And they said, what is it? I said, well, Germans aren't happy unless they have a problem. And if they don't have a problem, they're going to work really hard to find one. And he said, Jack, you've nailed it. So positive, uplifting cultures wasn't the natural. It wasn't a bad, negative culture. You think of it more of an apathetic kind of quiet culture. So it was a little less uplifting than what we were trying to push. And I also had one leader once tell me, and this is my CEO, he said, yeah, Jack, you like to send flowers a lot. And that was their phrase for complimenting somebody. Send flowers. And I said, yeah, because somebody does something nice, I tell them thank you, and I tell them you really made me feel good. Thank you very much, whatever. And he said, well, we Germans don't send flowers much. So the very next day, I had sent something to somebody, and I think it was his assistant, by the way. And she wrote me back, thank you so much for those kind words. It really uplifted my day. And so then I sent it on to him, saying, well, maybe not all Germans.
I thought you were going to say you sent him literal flowers.
Yeah. I kind of hinted to my boss, maybe it's the old way to think versus the new way to think. Maybe they want to come along too. And as a matter of fact, the leadership team in Germany embraced a lot of what we were doing. They asked for our leadership standards. We signed over, and then created a corporate set of leadership standards, which are really good and do have a lot in it about caring for people. And so they're coming along fast.
It sounds like a really strong area of process improvement, like constantly refining and improving. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep.
That's unbelievable. So what piece of advice would you give someone that is listening today that's just trying to get their feet wet in leadership?
So I think the best advice I would give someone who's either just started in leadership or maybe had one or two jobs in leadership, but really is caring about their leadership and wants to be better. I would tell them this. Their own development and mentorship is key, right? Develop a mentor or mentors, peer mentors, above you mentors, outside the company mentors, and develop yourself. Always focus on learning more. Take leadership classes. But the one thing that really helped me once was I coined the term leadership stalking. Now, don't worry, Nick, I won't send people to HR. but leadership stalking is kind of like it sounds. If in your life or in your company, you're going to have lots of leaders swirling around you, and if you look at each one and try to determine for yourself what you think is their little superpower, that's an exercise in stalking, right? And if you do that, you study each leader, you'll see a collection of different skills. And then it'll become apparent to you what you should work on. And you'll know, oh, I'm good at that part, but I'm not really good at what this lady or gentleman does. And that stalking, that observation technique really gets you reflective about yourself while you're studying others. And you got to force yourself. The trick is you got to force yourself to find one thing.
Right.
Even though they might have 10 things.
Right.
Pick their one thing.
Yeah.
And then to cap it off, I always challenge people to not only look at the leaders they admire, look at the leaders that they might not admire so much. And do two things. One, figure out what you think the thing is that you don't like about them, what you think they don't do well. So you could acknowledge it, accept it, and try to use that to drive your own behavior. And then, though, more importantly, look at those leaders that you're not too fond of to find the thing that they do well. Because you will find they actually have some positive traits and they got where they are because they did some good stuff.
Right.
And then it sort of gives them a little grace. They don't know you're doing this, but it's a little quiet way to give them a little grace to say in your mind, but the person does this well, and I'm going to learn that from them.
I like that. You have to put your ego aside to do that, right? And it's very humbling to do that. While you were speaking, I was remembering of some of my mentors in the beginning of some of my ventures. And I was remembering the one, that same experience, right? Like I had things that I admired and other things that I didn't necessarily understand. But as I grew, I understood a little bit more, right? It's kind of the season. But it was always to that attention to detail, right? Yeah. Like do what you say, follow through, but know your people. There's a friend of mine who is just retired as well, engineer, manufacturing company. And he said, listen, it didn't matter how big the company got. I walked the floor every day. Yeah. Talk to the people. He goes, do you know how many problems that you can solve by just having a conversation with someone, right? And being humble enough to forget about what your role is. That's great. So you mentioned the word mentor. So what would you say is a memorable piece of advice that you received from one of your mentors?
Wow.
Or any that you frankly might have ignored.
Yeah. So if I go back into my Honeywell years, there was a gentleman that ran our quality system, and I can't remember this specific, but I remember he came to me from the side one time, and he recounted something I had done, and it was the way I phrased what I was doing, the way I communicated, and the fact that I didn't do enough background research before I deployed my message. So code words, I was wrong. and he just looked at me and said, Jack, I know you're going to be a great leader, but you've got to be this careful and you've got to be this concentrated on how you give messages to people, because that's the message is what matters and how they interpret it. So I'd say that was one big one for me. I had another leader that pushed me real hard to improve my strategic thinking. At times I was just sort of collecting up ideas and we were just heading certain directions, but it didn't seem like I was pushing hard enough on the future. And he challenged me to do better there. But I never had too many formal mentors, and it was more of this stalking stuff that I did. Where I think I learned the most.
That's right. Yeah. That's the fun part, though, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that quite interesting. It's kind of an obsession of you get a nugget each and every time.
Exactly.
Right? I think I read books over and over sometimes over seasons and get a different nugget relevant to the season that you're in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. You learn a lot, right? I mean, education is constant, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah,
you don't get out of formal school and stop learning.
Yeah, there's a great formula that I was preaching to my team, and that it's L has got to be greater than C, which is your learning has got to be greater than the rate of change in the world. And then you can decide, is the rate of change increasing or decreasing? I think the rate of change in the world is increasing with AI and the like. So it raises the bar on all of us.
Yeah, that whole AI conversation comes down into a lot of conversation about the people-centric piece too.
Yeah.
We get into that conversation quite a bit, and I'm sure you did as well.
Yeah.
And many people think that AI replaces the human aspect of things. And maybe at some level it's assisting, but it's fascinating to see how quickly technology moves today, and especially probably in the work that you did as well.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the core of the uniqueness are the human beings, right? You can't necessarily replicate that.
Yeah. To me, the AI story is like Star Wars and the Force, right?
Yeah,
It can be used for good. It can be used for evil.
It can be used for evil.
And you have to choose.
Yes.
But hopefully enough of us choose the
other side. That definitely in my world it is used for evil.
Yeah.
We're never in a place that somebody is not trying to harm something, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you're right. Much of it is for, I guess, we all say that it is where you hang your hat to what you kind of see, right? If you're with good people and there's good beliefs and faith, right? Then that's what you know. And you can also find the other side too. But it's an interesting thing. We'll see how quickly it goes. I still feel like I'm a young man, but I'm kind of getting tired. Now I understand when my dad said, it's time for the young guys to work on this. But we'll see. Right? Till that time, as you work to kind of build your teams, how did you separate like understanding how did you really identify someone's skill to potentially be a leader in your organization? Or how did you train for that? That's a pretty unique thing, right? Some of us are like, well, our gut says so, right?
So you kind of have two chunks of leaders that come at you. One chunk is the leaders who want to be a leader. They're easy because you just tell them, get trained here and here. You give them a good assessment of their skills and say, you need to be better at this, better at that. So that's the easy game and works pretty good. And they've got that fire in them anyway. And so they usually listen to you. But the ones that I like even more is a group of leaders that don't push and ask for the assignment, right? That just seem to be really great people and really great leaders, but they need to be encouraged, I guess you'd say, to take on more and to learn more because they just have it. There's just some of those people that just have it. And those are the ones that I think go the farthest. They really do. So those, I don't know, that's the best answer I can give you is we did it two ways. And I know I would have to search out some of these leaders and I'd see them. And then I'd think an opportunity would come, and they wouldn't, try to go get a higher level job. And I'd go to them later and I'd say, why didn't you go after that job? You'd be perfect for it. And they go, well, I didn't think that, And then I learned it was a battle of confidence. So then I would go along every now and then. And when the president goes 2 notches down or 3 notches down and comes to me and puts his arm around you, figuratively speaking, and says, I want to consider doing this, then they would do it. And then the sparks would come in their eye, because they would do it for a year and then they come back and say, oh, I'm so glad you encouraged me to do that. I've really enjoyed the journey. It's great. I'm getting better, all this stuff. So that's the way I do it. Just like those 2 buckets.
That I'm smiling because my pastor, he's no longer with us, but he would go up and he would preach and he would ask for help, right? And then he would come down and I said, well, like, how many people are participating? He goes, no one. He goes, they don't listen to me when I'm standing up there. And I go, what do you mean? He was kidding a little bit, right? Yeah. And he goes, no, the work's done after Mass, where I go and actually personally go and ask the person to help me. And he goes, you know what they always say? Well, all you had to do is ask. And he said, well, I did up there, but why is nobody listening? So, and that just kind of reminds me of you, just that personal touch, going back to your people centric, right? That you're encouraging them. Have you ever had anybody that wants the title and wants to be a leader because they think they've been doing something for a long time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a leader one time, be part of an interview. I was part of the interview team for this next product manager. And this young man came into the interview, one of several candidates, and he looked at me and he said, well, you have to give me this job. I said, why do I have to give you this job? He said, well, I set a goal to be a manager by the time I'm 30 years old, and in 4 months I'm going to be 30 years old. So I really need this job. And I said to the young man, if you're going to set hard timelines on your career, you need to get ready for one thing. And he said, what's that? I said, changing companies. Because companies don't adapt their timelines on all the individual leaders' timelines. The company has a timeline. We have our needs. So, yeah, so that was probably the best story that I have run into people saying their timeline was more important than the company's timeline, and the company has its needs, you know.
And we've learned over the years that we probably have wanted it more than they have. Right. So you've tried to help someone and coach them. And that I found many times in my journey of learning is like, wow, I wanted that more for them than they did. And so why am I doing this? We're both setting ourselves up for failure. So that's been a humbling experience of you know, love and kindness, but it can go a little too far, I guess, sometimes, right? When we kind of go into this, we talk about if you could write a letter to your 35-year-old self, right? You said that gentleman was 30, and you were stepping into leadership. What would you say to your younger self?
What would I say to my younger self at 35 years old?
Would it be like, Dear Jack, buckle up?
Yeah, I don't know about the buckle up. I think it would be just keep growing and changing. The change was part of my career. Because not only did they ask me for a little bit higher level job, there were a lot of sideways moves in there. I mean, I ran manufacturing at my one company with 1,500 employees and 8 factories. I think it was 8 factories.
Wow.
And I had never done anything in manufacturing. And I thought that was a little crazy. What I quickly learned is manufacturing, yes, was about technology and how you do it, but it's all about people because there's a lot of people at manufacturing. So I did, and I had great leaders under me that took care of the factories. So it was a great learning experience. And they also had come along later, the top president guy, and said, gee, Jack, we'd like you to run engineering. And I said, this one, I'm going to say no. The only one time I said no. I said, I won't do that. He said, why? We want you to run engineering, VP of engineering. You haven't done it yet. And I said, one thing I know about engineers, because I came up more on the marketing side of the business, and I worked very closely with engineers. I said, they will only work for an engineer. You put a marketing or salesperson on top of an engineering team, you're going to lose a third of your engineers. Now, I was half joking.
Right.
But I was
half serious.
But I was half serious.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt they needed an icon of their leadership to be an engineer, an accomplished engineer. So they said, okay. So they came back about 3 months later and said, Jack, we're going to take engineering, marketing, and sales, put it together, call it one thing. We're going to call it customer development, and you're going to run that.
Always solving a problem.
So they still got me to run engineering, which I never did. I had great engineering leaders. And awesome. And so yeah, I don't know, I forget what we're going.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing from you, though, what is intriguing for many people that successfully navigate this is that it's not about the goal of like a title or a lateral move. It's about open opportunities, go and get the experience.
Well, it's growing. It's growing yourself and helping the company grow. I always looked at each one of those opportunities as what the company has a need, and they think I would help in this part of the business, and just go help. Be flexible and responsive, and grow your skill base.
Right.
And I think the more lateral jobs people have in their companies, the better off they are as a leader.
Yeah. I think you learn a lot of experience. I know my first job, I just said yes, right? Like I wanted into the organization. I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
So I was always mentored of like, money comes, but knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
And so I accept this job out of college, and my mom's like, so what are you going to make? Like, I think she's probably like, when are you leaving?
Yeah.
You know? And I said, I don't know. I didn't ask. And and she's like, you didn't ask. And I'm like, no, like I know that I'll be, I just want to learn and want to understand.
Yeah.
And I felt if I would have went for the money, then I probably wouldn't have the knowledge that I do today. I think kind of every day I kind of think of that mentality. I mean, dollars pay the bills, but the knowledge and who you help. And I hear that from you. It's kind of a different guiding principle than financial
Exactly.
reward. I mean, we all need to pay our bills and
Yep.
take care of our family respectively, but the knowledge is what allows you to help others and to build other leaders.
Exactly.
The
money will be there. Every job has its economic viability, right? So if you're an accountant, you're going to make a certain amount of money in a certain geography of the country. And if you're a VP of whatever, you're going to make a certain amount of money. Yes, you can push harder and try to make more sooner, but I had the same attitude you did, which was just keep giving me challenges, helping me grow, and the money will take care of itself someday.
I remember accepting. I went to one of the manager. I oversaw a couple departments for the function that I did, and I went to the CFO, and I'm like, hey, I want to do this. I had no idea how to do it. I just wanted to take it on. And it was neat to watch leaders that kind of understood probably my 20-year-old, pizzazz and excitement to be like, all right, well, let's see if you can just screw it up a little bit. And I kind of think about that today. I had a COO recently say, well, why did you give that project or something to that person? And I said, a test isn't the right word, but I want to see, hey, do they really want to take initiative to really drive it forward and develop it? Because as they move in their career, if they're not willing to kind of take this on and solve the problem, it's kind of a little bit of a test. He's like, that's intriguing. And I go, it's not insincere. It's just kind of, okay, how do you see if they're capable of doing things? So yeah, it's fascinating. It's amazing to learn from other leaders. So wonderful job there. As you, we're all talk about learning, right? Is there any books or anything that you could give to our listeners that you found a lot of inspiration in?
Yeah. So the books are always the question. What books do you read?
Yeah.
And I've never been a great book reader. I've read many leadership books, but not as many as you have, or most people, right? I've just sort of studied leadership as a hobby and not read as many books.
Okay.
If you go back to the original 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I thought that was a great book.
Yeah.
And it's a great foundation for leaders. And I mentioned Maxwell earlier. I always found him to be a pretty uplifting writer on leadership. And so all of his books are great. And now the new Simon Sinek stuff is the most recent Simon Sinek on the Power of Purpose, or forget.
Yes.
But Start with Why and all this kind of things.
Yes.
And he's very people centric, which I love that too. So those would be the kinds of books. The other thing I would say to leaders, and this is a LinkedIn thing, so I give them really great credit for doing what they did, and that is, it's the LinkedIn learning modules they get out there. And I think it's 15,000 learning modules they have in that library, and it's $240 a year to get full access to that suite of learning. So for the lower level leaders, as they're starting up and they've got lots to learn, they should go into LinkedIn Learning and just start doing it. And the beauty of it is, you do it on your own time, where you want to do it. And it's really great. You don't have to wait for a boss to have a training budget,
right?
Send you somewhere.
There's always a solution.
Yeah. It's just right there, ready to go. So I would say that's not reading, but it's learning.
Yeah, it's learning.
And I think it's a great place to get outside content to coach you on your journey.
That's great advice. Yeah. As we wrap it up today, do you have any closing feedback or comments or anything that you like to share?
Yeah. So maybe the tie to servant leadership a little bit, my people-centric feeling, positivity. But I guess I would share the one quote that I stumbled on in my journey that I've always used to be my gold standard of what I try to be as a leader. And it was from Lao Tzu, thousands of years ago, the Chinese philosopher. And he said, the ultimate goal of leadership is when the work is done, they'll say they did it without you. And I've always thought that was a very motivating quote. And it basically says, prepare them the best, prepare your team the best. And if you've done a great job of preparing them, they don't need you.
Right. They don't need to rely on you.
And it's not about you.
Right.
So That's
well
what
said.
I
I love it.
with.
There, you end it with building of leaders again, right? As Maxwell would say.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Jack. We appreciate your time today. And that's it for today, my friends. We're wrapping up another chapter of Servant Leadership Library, where where we follow where leadership lessons that don't collect dust, they spark action. A huge thank you to Jack. It was 23 years leading Phoenix Contact USA and nearly 2 decades before that at Honeywell. So he's officially retired, I hear, but I still think this people-centric thing is pretty alive. But let's be honest, we're all pretty sure he's going to be leading into, maybe sneakers now instead of that dress shoes. But Jack, your take on people and your people first leadership and your positive culture and growing teams, they don't just hit numbers, but they hit a stride. That's the kind of wisdom we strive for this podcast. So thank you. You've reminded us that leadership isn't just about control panels or corner offices. It's about connection, character, and coffee chats that turn into careers. So thank you again today, Jack.
It's an honor to be here.
Appreciate it very much.